Ibe sat on the old wooden bench under the mango tree, his mind racing back to the time when he had made the biggest mistake of his life. It was a bright, sunny afternoon, and the birds chirped merrily, oblivious to the storm brewing in Ibe's heart. He'd been a close friend to Oguji and his wife, Onyeka, for many years. Oguji was more like a brother to him, a bond formed since childhood. They grew up in the same village, Nkata, a place where trust was everything. But now, that trust was shattered, and the weight of it pressed heavily on Ibe's chest. He remembered that day 3 years ago, when Oguji had come to him, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Ibe, you know how much Onyeka and I have tried to have a child," Oguji began, his voice trembling. "We've been to all the herbalists in the village, prayed at every church. Still nothing. The doctor in Umuahia says my chances are slim. I need your help, Ibe. Onyeka and I have talked about it, and we believe you are the right person." Ibe had been shocked, his heart pounding as he listened to his friend. Oguji was asking him to be a sperm donor. It wasn't something he had ever imagined, especially not for his best friend. But he could see the pain in Oguji's eyes and the silent plea in Onyeka's. They were family to him, and how could he refuse family? After much thought and sleepless nights, Ibe agreed to help. He convinced himself it was the right thing to do for the happiness of his friends. He made a quiet trip to a clinic in the city where the process was done. It was a strange experience, but he did it. For months after, he tried to put the whole thing behind him. Then one day, news spread across the village that Onyeka was finally pregnant. The village of Nkata buzzed with joy, and people came from far and wide to congratulate Oguji and Onyeka. Ibe, too, felt a sense of relief and happiness for them. He had given them the gift of a child, a chance to complete their family. Or so he thought. As the months went by, something began to change inside Ibe. Each time he saw Onyeka's growing belly, he felt a strange tug in his heart. He found himself staring a little too long, feeling an emotion he couldn't quite explain. Was it pride? Was it something else? By the time Onyeka gave birth to a beautiful baby boy named Chika, Ibe could no longer ignore the connection he felt. He wanted to be a part of Chika's life, to see him grow, to hold him close and call him his own. The more he thought about it, the stronger the feeling grew. And then one day, Ibe made a decision that would change everything. He decided to claim his son. It was a quiet evening when he went to Oguji's house. Onyeka was breastfeeding Chike when Ibe arrived, and the moment he saw them together, his heart ached with a longing so intense it nearly brought him to his knees. Oguji greeted him warmly, unaware of the storm brewing within Ibe. "Ibe, my brother, come and see how healthy Chike is growing." Oguji beamed, lifting his son from Onyeka's arms. But Ibe was no longer smiling. "Oguji, Onyeka," Ibe started, his voice trembling. "I need to talk to both of you. It's about Chike." A chill settled in the room. Onyeka's eyes widened, and Oguji's smile faltered. "What do you mean?" Onyeka asked cautiously. Ibe took a deep breath, his heart pounding. "I have thought long and hard about this," he continued. "Chika is my blood, my son. I want to be a part of his life, as his father." The room exploded with tension. Oguji jumped to his feet, his face contorted with shock and rage. "What are you saying, Ibe? You agreed to help us. You gave up any right to claim him as your own?" Onyeka's face turned pale as she held Chika close, her hands trembling. "Ibe, how could you?" she whispered. But Ibe stood firm, his eyes filled with a resolve that frightened even him. "I never imagined I'd feel this way," he said. "But I can't deny it anymore. I want my son." That was when the real conflict began. For weeks, the village of Nkata was divided. Some sided with Oguji, believing Ibe had betrayed his friend's trust. Others sympathized with Ibe, understanding his bond with his biological child. The elders tried to intervene, but the situation only grew more heated. Oluoma, a respected elder in the village, called for a gathering under the Iroko tree, where such disputes were traditionally settled. The entire village came out that day, curious and anxious to see how things would unfold. "Ibe, Oguji, this matter is heavy," Oluoma said. "It touches on friendship, family, and the laws of our land. You both must speak from your hearts." Ibe spoke of his deep emotional connection to Chaiki, of how he had tried to suppress his feelings but failed. Tears welled up in his eyes as he pleaded, "I love Chika. I want to be his father, to raise him, and be a part of his life." Oguji, on the other hand, spoke of betrayal. "I trusted you, Ibe. I let you into my family's life, believing you were doing this for us, not for yourself," he shouted, his voice breaking. The elders listened intently, and the villagers whispered among themselves. Emotions were raw, and no one could predict what would happen next. After hours of debate, Oluoma finally spoke. "The decision here is not one for us to make, but for Onyeka, the mother," he declared. All eyes turned to Onyeka, who stood there, tears streaming down her face. Onyeka had been silent throughout the meeting, torn between her loyalty to her husband and the strange, undeniable truth that Ibe was Chika's biological father. She looked at her husband, then at Ibe, her heart breaking for the son she loved so much. "I do not want to lose my child," she whispered, her voice filled with anguish. "But I cannot deny that Ibe has a claim to him, too." The village fell silent. A decision had to be made, and it became clear that there was no easy way out. The tension grew, and Ibe felt his heart shatter a little more with each passing moment. Oguji couldn't bear the idea of sharing his son with Ibe. He looked at Onyeka, his face twisted with pain. "I would rather leave this village with my family than live knowing that my own brother betrayed me," he said bitterly. That night, Oguji and Onyeka packed their belongings and left the village of Nkata, taking baby Chike with them. Ibe watched them go, his heart a heavy stone in his chest. The villagers murmured, their faces filled with a mixture of pity and disappointment. Days turned into weeks, and Ibe's heartache deepened. He had lost his closest friend, his bond with Onyeka, and most painfully, his chance to be a father to his son. The village whispered of his regret and loneliness, and children were warned not to go near his house. Ibe became a shadow of himself, haunted by his choices, the echoes of his past decisions reverberating in the empty halls of his home. He had acted on his emotions, but now he paid the price. A price that left him more alone than ever before. In the quietness of the nights, Ibe could hear the distant cries of a child, cries that seemed to call out to him, mocking his loss. It was then that he realized the true cost of what he had done. There would be no happy ending for him, no redemption. His heart was heavy with the sadness of his choices, and he was left with nothing but the ghost of what could have been. As he sat once again under the mango tree, he knew that he had lost not just a son, but also the trust, love, and friendship that had once defined his world. And there, beneath the quiet branches, Ibe wept for all he had lost.